Hello everybody, I'm Ivan. Welcome to Product with Ivan. Today we're going to learn about something really exciting, market analysis. Now, whether you are a new business trying to create something new that has never been seen, even something that has already been seen, or whether you're an existing business, you have an idea, a product has been working in one district, one country, and you want to go into another country, or whether it's actually just you and you want to move from one career to another, either way, you have a product that you're trying to see how you can move from one region to another, from one market to another. And that's what the video about today is. It's about how can we do proper market analysis that can allow us to better position ourselves into this new market we want to go into. Now, I do know that you could just wake up one day, decide you want to create something, and then just go with it. I do know that. And a lot of people have done it. And some have survived and some have not, right? And that's a school of thought. But however, I do believe that you need to do a proper market research, not something extensive like a 1 month whole research, but also not something small like a 1 hour research. You need just enough of research to get yourself enough information that you understand the size of that market, the segments in that market, the rules in the market that consider you, and also the players, so that you can be able to say this is where I stand in relation to this market. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now let us get into the crux of this video. Now, over the past couple of weeks, I've been really interested in point of sale software products for the pharmacy space. So that's what this is going to be based on. And I'm going to try a market I really have no idea about. I'm going to assume that if I was in Africa, I would be trying to sell or to create a POS software for the South African pharmaceutical space. Now, no idea about that space, just learned about it a couple of days ago, so this is going to be really fun. Now, the first thing we should ask ourselves, good, Ivan, you've decided you want to create a POS software. You've decided you want to go to South Africa. It's a beautiful country. How big is that market in the first place? That's why the first thing you have to ask yourself is size. Because you never want to go into a place that you cannot swim in. You never want to jump into a pool that has no water. So the first thing you ask ourselves is how many pharmacies are in that space. According to 2024 data, there was around 3,800 plus pharmacies in South Africa. Let us say maybe we overadjust and say, you know what, somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 pharmacies in the pharmaceutical space in South Africa. Now, they ask yourself the second question. How much money do these people generate? All right, because again, you do not want to create a product or a service that people will not be able to afford, right? So then comes to the revenues generated. Again, through desktop research, I could find out that in 2024, they made around $6 billion in revenues together. But let us maybe understand and overstate. Let us say they made something between 3 to 8 billion. So that means that all the medicines sold inside the country by the entire pharmaceutical space combined could fill a revenue hole of somewhere between 3 to 8 billion dollars. Again, then all assumptions, but then guided by a few research articles we found online. The last question you ask yourself about the market, of the size of the market, is how much were they willing to pay for a service like mine? Right, that's very important. How much were they spending on POS software? The figures I found say that they spent somewhere anywhere between $3 million to $7 million on POS softwares, right? And this could make sense. If you have about 3,000 pharmacies and each is paying over $100 a month, somewhere between 3 to 7 million US dollars could be a really good range. And once you understand that, I want to something further. How many big players are in South Africa? Because this number doesn't mean anything if I don't say there's anybody in that space willing to fish for this money. And then that's why I found people like Mixme. I found people like Omni, Prix, and I found a local company which I'm going to really base most of the research today, which I'm going to name Beta. This is a local company. This one exists. Just whole different name. Once you understand this thing, right? Once you understand the size of this market, you understand that there's over 3,000, 5,000 people, then the next question is, oh my God, can these 5,000 people afford to pay? Of course they can. They made over $3 billion in revenue, right? Okay, if this were made over $3 billion in revenue, Were they willing to spend some of that money on a service like mine? And of course they did. They spent over $3 million monthly. No, sorry, they spent over $3 million on a yearly scale to get these pure softwares. And then McKinsey. Now on to the next steps, right? Once you have defined the size, right? You know that in South Africa, there is over 3,500 plus pharmacies to somewhere like 6,000 pharmacies, right? You know how much money they're making, somewhere between 3 billion to 6 billion US dollars. And you know that they've been able to spend at least 3 plus on subscriptions for your particular type of product. Then we come into the most important step. Out of these 3,500, who should you serve and why? This is basically where you have the second step of segmentation, finding out the rules to play for different segments, and then who can actually kill you if you try to go after that market, aka your competition. Now, let us say among these 3,000 individuals, right? Among these 3,000 individuals, there is different ways you can classify them. You can classify them according to their position in the value chain. You can categorize them based on the revenues they generated, right? You could classify them based on the different products they specialize in. Right? There's many ways you could actually segment these people. For me personally, I like to segment people according to the value chain. If I go according to the value chain, I know that there's 3 groups of people. There's importers, right? There is wholesalers, right? And then there is the basic end of the chain people, who you could call the last door, right? Or the local shops. Based on the numbers, I could find out there was around 500 importers. There was around 1,000 wholesalers, right? And then there was over 2,000 plus local shops. This is very important because you now know if I create a product that works for the importers, I'm only selling 500 people, or I could only sell 1,000 people, I could only sell 2,000 people. Or if I'm going to combine this, the different types of people, the amount of people I'm going to serve. Once you understand the numbers, you start asking yourself, why should they pay for my particular service, right? You find out that, for instance, importers want POS software so they can manage inventory. Actually, they both want to manage inventory, right? You find out that importers, even though importers want to manage inventory, they also want to manage billing. They all want to manage billing, right? But then these people are dealing not only with local transactions, but they're dealing with international transactions. So your billing has to be both local, that means you must be connected to local banks, plus internationals. That means that your software must be able to help them. It's necessary to actually play in here. We do know that for the importers, you will need to be able to connect yourself to the financial markets, right? You need to be able to handle international payments, or to at least integrate yourself with international payment providers. Right? Now, what are the rules? What are the ways that you have to be integrated in order to play either at the wholesaler level or the local shop level? For this situation, I could only think of 2 main actually important things, right? I thought of 2 things: the insurance claims, right? And then also thought of privacy laws. So, though I was thinking about it, for instance, if I was to actually create a POS software for the local shops, they can only accept payment from patients if patients have signed that, hey, I'm getting this amount of medication for X amount of money on this insurance. That means that if this pharmacy wants to collect its payment, it has to go to that insurance company and say, hey, we did A, B, C, D, F, G under you, so you have to give us X amount. That means every POS software must be able to allow them to do claims insurance. That, my friends, is a red flag. Because that means that I have to integrate myself within that ecosystem, and I may not have the money to literally start afresh with a whole budget to just convince people and lobby them to allow me to connect to them. The second thing is privacy laws, right? In order to sell as a wholesale to local shops, you do not get access to any of the private, personal patient information, right? It's all business information. But if I'm at a local shop I will be selling medication, I'll be selling diabetics, I'll be selling retinopathy medication to X name. Now, even though it is not the same of severity as if I was selling this information, or as if I said, even if it's not the same level of severity as if it's information from, I don't know, a hospital that says what X name did on the day of Tuesday or Wednesday, but it's still somehow kind of close to patient information. So because of that, I would also be having a thing to deal with other local shops. I would have to deal with the privacy information of these locals. So that is why understanding that, hey, there's financial market regulations. If I'm wanting to play at the importers level, if I'm wanting to play at the local level, I have to deal with insurance claims, right? If I'm wanting to play at the local level, it may not be a problem. I may not be hampering privacy laws, but that could be a thing that could eat me up, right? That is something to consider. So all these three rules, right? These rules, the financial markets, the insurance portals, the privacy laws, right? Plus the different amount of people in here. These are 500 people. These are 1,000 people. These are 200 people. These are three really cool sets of information that are going to help you know where to go. You could even add a third one. How much money does each of these people make, right? Now, you know for a fact that money is going to go down the chain. That's for true, right? That means that most of the money is going to be made up here at the importer level. The second most amount of money will be made here at the wholesale level, right? And even though a lot of money could be made at the local shop, there's over 2,000 plus of them. So individually, each one of them doesn't have as much money as an individual wholesaler. The same individual wholesaler that have the same amount of money as an importer. And you always want to be able to say, okay, either I'm gonna sell a really big product to like a really well-adjusted, financially stable customer, or I'm going to sell one small product to a million kind of like well-off customers. I would either choose the first two and never the last, right? So for me personally, I would be either one of these two. I would either serve the wholesaler, right? Or I would serve the importer, all right? But before you even go about that, then yes, you could make a decision here, right? You've already understood the size of the market. You've understood the three different segments. You've understood the different roles or different rules you have to play by in order to be able to sustain yourself in this market. You could make a decision right now. Nobody would blame you. Nobody really would. Like, you could just roll with it. But it's also kind of nice to always wonder about your different players. Earlier said there's McKinsey, right? It's not McKinsey, there's McKinsey, right? And I also remember they saying that there was another company that I decided to call Better, right? Turns out in South Africa, these people create softwares for the entire chain, right? But I did notice that there were some three main complaints that people were complaining about. For McKinsey, they said that they did not understand the local context, right? These are people who came from abroad, they're not our people, and they never understand exactly what we're going through. They don't understand our languages, they don't understand what's happening here, they don't really connect with us. They have really good product, but they cannot connect with the locals. That's kind of a bummer. Number two, you have Beta, right? Beta, yes, understand the local people, understand the context, but they have not updated their solution since 2019. It still has the same UI, there's no AI analytics, there is no new cool reporting frameworks that other kids on the block are bringing. It's affordable, yes, at $100 compared to the $200 of the European player, but then again, it's not up to par. So that's the other information you get by understanding your players, right? Because now you can be able to say, you know what? Beta's problem is simply that it has not been able to catch up with 2026. It's not been able to integrate artificial intelligence with their offering. McKinsey has not been able, McKinsey has not been able to understand and mold themselves into something the local market can actually digest. And this is a thing that most internationally big institutions tend to fall for, because it is hard to customize yourself for each market when you're serving hundreds of them. So that is exactly the information that you get from analyzing your players. So now, you know the size, right? You know that there is 5,000 plus, right? You know there is, so you know the size. You know there's 5,000 pharmacies in South Africa. You know there's three different segments: importers, wholesalers, and then the local shops, right? You know, in order to play for the importers, you need to be able to connect yourself with the different financial markets. In order to play for the different local shops around the ecosystem, you need to be integrated within the insurance portal, but also you need to be integrated within in order to play for the local shops, you need to be integrated with the insurance portals, but also you need to sustain yourself in a way that you will not damage the privacy laws. And they also know that there's two main players, McKinsey, which came from Europe, but has not been able to kind of customize itself for the local market. But then there's also a local player who has not yet caught up. They're still doing stuff without AI. They're still having a 2019 UI. They're still not able to do reports. Their product is really down low. With all that information, now you choose. Me personally, you choose the wholesale space, right? I choose to serve these 1,000 people because I don't need to sustain myself with the financial markets. I don't need to deal with insurance portals, or I need to deal with privacy laws. And then also they're the second richest on this entire chain. And then I do not do what McKinsey did. I do not go in without understanding the client context they're living in, but then also do not do what Beta did, and I don't always give them the best product they have at the moment. So that is how you get a lot of information to be able to position yourself best within the market. Now, this was a very short video that tried to explain a really difficult concept, but I hope that it kind of shed light and not confuse you all. Most of these are going to have different templates of how to actually understand each of these. And then I'm going to post all of these in the description box, and each of you can then go through them and understand exactly how to help yourselves.